Welcome back to Mateina, your Yerba Mate podcast. As the name says, this podcast is all about Yerba Mate. I am your host, Tomas, or you can call me Thomas, whatever you prefer. If you stick around with me, and as long as you stick around with me, we all will be friends by the end of this episode, because today we have a jam-packed episode. It is episode number 24. Mis amigas, mis amigos, 24. And we are jumping right in to our topics. And guess what? Tomorrow, my friends, is the start of the World Cup. Yes, World Cup in the United States, Mexico, and Canada. And the previous weekend was the Yerba Mate World Cup in Buenos Aires. Yes, the Yerba Mate World Cup, Copa Mundial de Yerba Mate in Argentina. And why this matters? Yep, because it could transform the industry forever. That's one of our topics that we're talking today. What happened there and who won it? I don't know. Is there a winner? And we're also going to dive into the international business deals helping Mate reach new markets, the rise of small artisan brands at Expo Mate 2026. And then we wrap it up with a deep dive of Kalena Tradicional and Kalena Suave, two of Argentina's most intriguing artisan yerbas. Beautiful, beautiful topics today. And without any further ado, I would say we start right into it. But before we do that, don't forget to subscribe on YouTube, on Apple Podcast, or on Spotify. And follow us on Instagram, Somos Mateina, on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcast, and on Instagram, somosmateina.com. And visit our store, somosmateina.com. This is where you get all the good stuff, all the gear, gourds, yerbas, over 85 different kinds of yerbas is what we have. We also have a section for artisan yerbas, which Kalena is one of them. So, now, without any further ado, well, actually, there is a little further ado, because I need a sip of my Yerba Mate. And which one is it today? Well, you guessed it right. It's Kalena Suave. And we're gonna review it. We're going to review it now that I spit it out, Tomas. We are reviewing it later, and I will tell you everything about this beautiful, beautiful yerba from Argentina, the northeast, Establecimiento San Demetrio. Well, we're gonna dive into this a little bit later. But now, the World Cup. Dung, 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 dung. The World Cup was last week. The World Cup of Yerba Mate in Buenos Aires. In Buenos Aires. Mundial de la Yerba Mate. And that is exactly what happened in the past week. Because people, when they hear that name, they often imagine something very different from what it actually is. Yeah, at first glance, it sounds like a marketing gimmick, something, you see on Instagram, social media, and wherever. But what does the World Cup for Yerba Mate really stand for? And how does it work? Who is competing? Who is judging? What exactly is this anyway? This is what I'm going to tell you now. And also why it's important for the industry. But once you understand the concept behind this event, you will realize it's actually a very serious initiative and could play an important role in the future of this beautiful drink that I call Yerba Mate, with so many other people from all over the world. So the Yerba Mate World Cup is essentially an international quality competition and is designed specifically for Yerba Mate and mate-based products. So think of this as the mate equivalent of international wine competitions, coffee championships, olive oil awards, and so on. So the goal isn't to see who can drink the most yerba mate or who prepares the best gourd. Well, might be interesting to do a competition on that too, but that's not what the World Cup was about. The goal is to evaluate the quality of the product itself. Because for decades, the mate industry has lacked something that many other beverage categories, the aforementioned ones, have had for years. A globally recognized system for comparing products and rewarding excellence. Wine has hundreds of international competitions. Coffee has the Cup of Excellence and numerous barista championships. Tea has global awards and professional tasting events. But mate, despite being consumed by so many millions of people all around the world and representing a multi-billion-dollar industry, mate never really had its own international benchmark. And that's exactly what the organizers of the Mundial are trying to create. And this is why the event is so important. The event, which took place at the Museo del Mate in Buenos Aires. Yes, it's a museum dedicated to yerba mate. They brought together producers, industry professionals, judges, researchers, retailers, and consumers from multiple countries and continents. And what makes it particularly interesting is that products are evaluated through blind tasting. So that's the main part of this event. The blind tasting of yerba mate, or of yerba. In other words, the judges don't know which brands they are tasting. They are not influenced by packaging, marketing, popularity, or company size. They are simply evaluating the quality of what's on their taste palette. And that's important because it creates a level playing field. A small artisan producer from Misiones, for example, can compete against a major multinational brand and be judged according to exactly the same standards. In theory, the best product wins. Not the biggest marketing budget, not the most famous logo, just the best yerba. The competition itself is divided into multiple categories. You have the flavored product, the specialty blends, organic yerbas, functional infusions, and other innovations that have emerged as the industry expands internationally. And this reflects a major shift that's happening in the mate world. Because 20 years ago, most people thought of mate as one thing, a traditional loose leaf product consumed from a gourd. Today, the category, thankfully, is much broader. You have organic yerbas, you have artisan products, you have tereré blends, you have energy drinks based on mate, you have tea bags, you have flavored infusions, you have products targeting athletes, wellness consumers, and specialty beverage enthusiasts. The World Cup? Yes, the World Cup acknowledges all of those categories and creates space for them to be evaluated professionally. Whew. I need a little sip of my Kalena because that was a lot, and very interesting, right? Yerba mate is being evaluated and honored, finally honored in a competition by experts, judges, aficionados, and sommeliers and visitors. They were able to attend the tastings. You could learn about production methods. You can meet the producers directly. You can discover differences between Argentine, Paraguayan, Brazilian, and Uruguayan styles of yerba. You can learn how aging affects flavor. You can explore concepts that most casual consumers never thought about. For example, many people don't realize that their mate has terroir. That's a fancy word, but it's pretty much associated with wine. But it applies here too. The climate, the soil, the altitude, and growing conditions, they all influence the final flavor of the leaves that are in your gourd. A mate, for example, grown in one part of Misiones can taste noticeably different from a mate grown somewhere else. That event helps consumers understand these nuances. And that's important because one of the biggest challenges facing the mate industry is education. If you ask most consumers why they buy a specific yerba, their answer is often very simple. Well, it's what my family has always had, so I'm going to drink it too. That's what I grew up with, or I just, they had this in the store and it looked nice. Or someone recommended it to me. But the World Cup encourages a different mindset. Instead of simply consuming mate, it encourages people to appreciate it, to analyze it, to compare it, to understand it. I mean, let's face it, have you ever had a little mate challenge at home? You just pour the yerba in little glass containers, you mix them around, put away the packaging, and then you taste them and see what you taste. No, you have never done that? Well, try it. I'm sure you don't just have one kind of yerba at home, right? You probably have different kinds. Spill them out, try them, and see how they taste and what you taste. If you close your eyes and enjoy it. If you've ever done a tasting, if you want to do it now, or if you have a kind of yerba that you love because of certain attributes, let me know in the comments or tag us on Instagram and tell us your story about your Yerba Mate World Cup. And that event happens because everyone benefits. The producers gain incentives to improve quality. Consumers gain a better understanding of what they're actually drinking. And the category itself gains prestige. Another reason this event matters is international visibility. One of the biggest obstacles, for obvious reasons, is for yerba mate outside South America is awareness. You see mate in cans, and I'm talk to people that are not from South America and I say, drink mate, and they're like, what is mate? And then you tell them, hey, you probably know it from the grocery store. You've seen numerous brands you can mention now. And they're really, yeah, I know what that is. And I've never. And I said, no, that's sort of what mate is. I mean, that is how it's being sold in a lot of countries. But the actual product is yerba leaves. You drink it out of a gourd, as a pumpkin or wood or glass or whatever you prefer, with a bombilla, which is like this kind of straw that has a filter on the bottom. And many people simply don't really know what that is. Yeah, sure, why not? But that's why we're here. That's why the World Cup is here, to introduce them to this coffee alternative, because of the caffeine and theobromine and theophylline and all the other beautiful, healthy parts that come with yerba mate. The media covers it. International buyers pay attention. Distributors discover new brands. Influencers and journalists attend. And suddenly, mate becomes part of a broader conversation. And that's just incredible value, especially at the time when global interest in functional beverages is growing. Because consumers are increasingly looking for alternatives to coffee, energy drinks, and all those sugary sodas that also include the mate that you find, or the majority of the brands of mate that you find in grocery stores all over the world. Mate sits in a unique position because of what I've mentioned before, the caffeine, the theobromine, the theophylline, the antioxidants, tradition, and a strong cultural story. The World Cup provides a platform to showcase all of that. It's very exciting. And this was just the first edition of this event. And I hope that this event will take place every year now, and that it will be sort of the championship of yerba mate. And the organizers of the Mate World Cup clearly hope to build something similar, something that eventually becomes a reference point for the entire industry, something that consumers, retailers, producers, exporters, everybody involved, including the ones that drink it, have a meaningful approach to that quality product. And whether that happens remains to be seen. But one thing is already clear. The fact that an event like this exists tells us something important about where the industry is heading. It tells us that Yerba Mate is no longer content being just a regional agricultural product. It wants to be recognized as a world-class beverage all over the world. It wants to stand alongside coffee, tea, wine, and other products that have built global cultures around quality and appreciation. And honestly, when you look at the history, complexity, and diversity of mate, it's hard to argue that it doesn't deserve a place in that conversation. So while the World Cup may seem like a niche event today, it could end up being remembered as one of the milestones that helped elevate Yerba Mate onto the global stage. And for everyone who loves mate, that's a development worth paying attention to. Yes, my friends, tomorrow the World Cup starts with the first game in Mexico. And the previous weekend we had the Yerba Mate World Cup in Buenos Aires at the Museum for Yerba Mate. And if you want to know who won, go on their website, check it out. mundialyerbamate.com is their website, but you could also go to the Museo de la Yerba Mate website, Museo del Mate in Buenos Aires, and you will find some more information there too. So museodelmate.com.ar, museodelmate.com.ar. This is your source for Yerba Mate and the World Cup as well. So let's talk about something different. The International Yerba Mate Business Round. Now that sounds boring, doesn't it? But let's take a look. Before you turn off now, let's take a look and see what it really is. Because one of the most important events, aside from the World Cup, happening in the Yerba Mate industry this month isn't a new product launch or a trade show or a scientific study. It's something that most of you guys will never see directly, but yet it could have a major impact on your future of the entire industry. Because the Instituto Nacional de la Yerba Mate, the INYM, is inviting companies to participate in the International Yerba Mate and Infusions Business Round 2026, which will take place in Posadas Misiones from June 17th to June 19th. That's next week. The event is specifically designed for exporters and companies interested in becoming exporters. Still sounds boring? Not so much anymore, because your yerba has to come into your gourd, and that's not gonna just fly through the air. It has to be exported. And now, this is more exciting, I think. Think about it. Most people drink mate without ever wondering how it got to their country. If you're listening from Europe, North America, Asia, the Middle East, yerba mate you're drinking didn't just magically appear on your shelf. It had to pass through importers, distributors, logistic companies, retailers, regulatory systems, and so on and so on. And that's exactly what these business rounds are designed to facilitate. The event brings together Argentine producers with international buyers looking for new products and suppliers. Instead of companies spending years trying to establish contacts abroad, they can sit down directly with potential partners and start conversations that could eventually lead to exports. And what's particularly interesting is how broad the category has become, because this isn't just about traditional yerba mate anymore. According to the event information, the business round includes traditional yerba, despalada varieties, flavored yerbas, tereré blends, mate tea bags, soluble mate products, and specialty blends. And that tells you something. The global market for mate is becoming increasingly diversified. Because 20 years ago, most exports focused on traditional consumers in countries with established mate cultures. I mean, you know them, right? The usual suspects: Uruguay, Brazil, Argentina, Paraguay, and Syria, which still remains one of the largest export destinations for Argentine yerba mate. However, today companies are targeting very different consumers. In Germany, for example, consumers may be interested in organic and functional beverages or in artisan blends. In the United States, ready-to-drink versions are positioned as alternatives to energy drinks. In Spain, France, mate increasingly appears in wellness stores alongside green tea and herbal infusions. The product itself remains yerba, but the marketing story changes depending on the audience. And this is why export matters so much, because they help producers understand what international consumers really want. And to summarize this, let's just take a look at some numbers. Between 2005 and 2024, European imports of yerba mate grew from roughly 2,500 tons to around 9,000 tons. Almost 4 times. And that's not just growth, that's evidence that mate is gradually becoming part of the mainstream beverage conversation. Yes, you can be in Barcelona at the beach. Barceloneta, you sit there, enjoy the sun. You see numerous people drinking yerba mate, the classic way, the loose leaf tea out of the calabash, the mate as it is called, with their thermoses, different kinds of stickers on it, beautiful things. You can also go to Lisbon, or you can go to Germany, Switzerland, or to a train station in the middle of Vienna. You see people walking around with a thermos in their hands and a mate gourd. Because demand is growing all over. And that's a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful thing. And if you want to get your yerba, go on somosmatina.com and get your yerba. More than 85 different kinds of yerba, from artisan blends, artisan brands, to organic ones, barbacoa, all kinds of yerbas. Paraguay, from Uruguay. Well, not from Uruguay, because as a mate drinker, because Uruguay does not produce yerba, but they produce yerba. So what does that mean? They don't produce the leaves, but they have companies that produce yerba. Like Canarias is a typical Uruguayan yerba mate. But the leaves grow in Brazil. Yeah. So, to wrap this up, while consumers may never see these meetings that are happening behind the scenes, they will eventually feel the effects when new brands appear on the shelves, in online stores, or wherever you get your mate from. When more countries begin carrying mate, and when the beverage reaches audiences that had never heard of it before. And that brings me to Expo Mate 2026, the future of small brands. And our yerba of the week, Kalena, is one of them. And let's go, small brands. With support from the INYM, and you already know what this stands for. More than 50 yerba mate companies participated in the Expo Mate 2026 in San Isidro, presenting their products directly to consumers. And that's a significant thing, because one of the biggest challenges for small producers is not the competition, but the visibility. Because many small producers have excellent products. Look at Kalena. Look at Porongo. Look at La Rubia. There's so many delicious Yerba Mate products, and they just have difficulties gaining visibility. You have to look at different stores. You have to go online and see where you can find them. And that's why this Expo Mate 2026 in San Isidro is so important, because they help change that. Visitors don't just see a package on a supermarket shelf. They meet the people behind the brand. They hear their stories. They taste their products. They'll learn about production methods. And this year's Expo featured more than 170 brands, tastings, educational activities, artisans, books, and cultural experiences related to Yerba Mate. Modern buyers, because modern buyers aren't only interested in flavor anymore. They look for authenticity. They want to know where the product comes from. They also are interested in the people. They want to know a little bit about the brands and how it excels. They want to know if they can provide consistency. Sometimes you get a yerba bag that is good. You get the same brand, the same kind of yerba again, and it tastes a little bit off. Well, they also want to know about identity. Consumers, they are becoming more curious. They want to explore more organic products, seeking artisan brands, comparing regions and processing methods. In other words, they're behaving more like enthusiasts, just like the wine enthusiasts and aficionados. And that evolution creates opportunities for producers who previously struggled to compete. Expo Mate isn't just a trade show. It's another piece of evidence that the mate industry is becoming more sophisticated, that it is growing even for small artisan brands. That's very good news. Yes, very good news. And with very good news, we're continuing our show with the Yerba of the Week review, Kalena Tradicional versus Kalena Suave. Well, it's not really a competing thing because they're from the same brand, but they probably attract different yerba drinkers because they're just a little bit different in taste, flavor, and consistency. So if you've spent enough time in the mate world, you've probably seen someone mention Kalena, right? Some of them might have even talked about it with almost religious enthusiasm, because it's one of those brands that doesn't have the global recognition like Canarias, Taragüí, or Playadito. But among experienced drinkers, it is often a topic in conversations about quality, craftsmanship, and authenticity. And if you've ever talked to me about Yerba Mate, I am sure I have spoken to you about Kalena. My favorite Kalena is the Tradicional, if you want to know. But let's look at the company. What is Kalena? Who is Kalena from? Who is Kalena from? Where is Kalena from? And who is Kalena? So now we got it. So Kalena is produced by the San Demetrio establishment. So that was English and Spanish. San Demetrio Establecimiento in Misiones. San Demetrio establishment in Misiones, Argentina, in the heartlands of Yerba Mate. The company goes back to its origins 1950, when Basilio Procopio, the son of Ukraine immigrants, planted the family's first Yerba Mate crops in Tres Capones, Misiones. The Kalena brand itself was officially launched in 1977 and takes its name from Kalina, an imported symbol in Ukraine culture that represents heritage, resilience, and family roots. Yeah, I have the Suave package in front of me, and I must say this logo almost looks like a 4 and a K. Is very interesting, and to me it looks very traditional, old school, like something that stands for quality. And this is what we're going to dive into now. Because while modern companies have moved towards highly industrialized processes, Kalena still relies on the traditional barbacoa drying system. Barbacoa drying system is one of the oldest methods of processing yerba, where the leaves are slowly dried using wood-fired heat. This gives it a very distinct smoky character that has become the brand's signature taste or flavor. The company also naturally ages its yerba for approximately 12 months before packaging, helping develop a smoother and more complex flavor. So on the average, most yerbas are aged between 6 and 12 months. Some you go to 24 months, and then you have the Arai 900 días, 900 days of aging. But that's very rare. So the company describes itself as an agroecological and family-run, emphasizing artisanal production and natural processing methods rather than mass industrialization. And honestly, that philosophy can be tasted in the cup. Let's start with Kalena Tradicional. The first thing you'll notice when you open a bag is the aroma. It's not your typical supermarket yerba. No, it smells, no offense to supermarkets, but it's richer. The smell immediately tells you that you're dealing with something more complex. There's smoke, but there is no harsh smoke. It's just something that you associate with the lower qualities. No, it's the delicious smoke, the barbacoa smoke, the sophisticated layer that just goes right into your nostrils. And you get notes of toasted wood, malt, dried fruit, cedar, and even subtle hints of a cigar. Yeah, maybe I'm exaggerating here, but you know what I'm talking about, right? Some people may even compare the aroma to a barbecue, to raisins, or to, well, premium cigars. Go on Reddit, you will see what people say there. But I don't know, I think it's stretching it a little bit. So the first sip, the taste. For a brief moment, the first sip can feel relatively approachable. You get a hint of grassy notes, the earthiness, and the mild bitterness. Seems fairly traditional, but then the complexity kicks in. And as the sessions develop, new flavors emerge constantly. One refill might bring out notes of roasted peanuts, sunflower seeds. The next one may reveal honey, maple syrup, malt, cedar, and subtle citrus notes. And later, towards the end of your drinking cycle, flavors resembling sweet black tea with milk, toasted grains, and even green apple come out. So I'm getting hungry now. So, but the body is medium. It's creamy, it's satisfyingly rich, and it coats the palates. It stands out. It certainly stands out. And I can tell you that because I drink it almost every other day. It doesn't feel aggressive. There's no smokiness that dominates. There's no bitterness that overwhelms you. It just feels good. Because Kalena brings out the best in you. And now let's look at Kalena Suave. Because Kalena Suave is the more approachable and relaxed version of the family. That's more of the laid-back brother of the Tradicional. The company uses the same artisanal philosophy and traditional production methods, barbacoa and so on, but the resulting experience is noticeably gentler. The aroma is softer, the smoke is still there, but it kind of takes a step back and lingers around in the back. And instead of immediately noticing wood, smoke, and malt, you're more likely to pick up a herbal notes, dried grass, gentle sweetness, and subtle woodiness. And before you even take the first sip, when you look at the leaves are bigger. They are larger in size. It just looks different. And then you take the first sip. And what becomes obvious is that it tastes different than the Tradicional, because the Suave version enters the palate much more gently. The bitterness is lower, the smoke is more restrained, the flavor profile leans towards sweet cereals, dried hay, mild herbs, and delicate tasted notes. It is an incredibly smooth drink while still maintaining enough personality to remain really interesting you. So to make a point here, traditional is for exploration, suave is for enjoyment, tradicional challenges you, suave welcomes you. So who should drink each one? Well, just try both and you will know, right? If you want, however, lower bitterness, softer smokiness, balanced profile, go with the suave. If you want something that is a little bit more refined, a little bit more in the face, a little bit more smoky, yes, the Tradicional is the one. If you enjoy Rosamonte, La Merced, Barbacoa, Selecta, or other stronger profiles, you probably love the Tradicional. And it is definitely one of the best that I've ever had. So if you're an aficionado, go get yourself a bag and try it. And if you're not sure, get the red one, which is the Tradicional, and the blue one, which is the Suave. Start with the Suave if you're newer to mate and prefer smoother profiles. And then if you like that, try the more intense one. Go straight to the Tradicional. There's complexity, smoke, malt, toasted grains, and long evolving sessions. But either way, you're getting one of the most distinctive artisan yerbas currently coming out of Argentina, Kalena. Ukrainian immigrants. So many Europeans left Europe for Argentina and started mate businesses, yerba businesses. That's beautiful. But what's not so beautiful is that we are at the end of our episode today. But don't you worry, we'll be back in 2 weeks. We send bi-weekly. And this episode came from a studio in Barcelona. Yes, we recorded this episode in Barcelona because we spent some time outside of Barcelona in a small town that is called Castelldefels. Shout out to my friends in Castelldefels as well as in Barcelona. Castelldefels, maybe you've heard it, this is where Messi lives. But yes, Castelldefels, this is where some of my friends live, so shout out to them. Thanks for listening. We are at the end of this episode. Sad moment, but again, we'll be back in 2 weeks. And until then, follow us on Instagram, Somos Mateina. Go on YouTube. We'll post a lot of stuff there, as well as on Instagram. You get to see cool videos that explain certain things about the yerba mate. How to clean your bombilla, for example. How to clean your gourd. How to dry your gourd. How to cure your gourd. We explain different thermoses, bombillas. So just go there, follow us on Instagram, and we want to grow a big yerba mate community in Europe and all over the world. So please follow us, subscribe, or visit our store somosmatina.com and get your gear. If you don't know what yerba mate is, we'll have news and tips there. You can read it, you can see videos, you will get a detailed description of what yerba mate is. You can also get your starter kit there and start it and see if you like it. So until then, thank you very much. I am Tomas, or you can call me Thomas. I am your host of this podcast that I call Mateina. Until 2 weeks. And don't forget, el café es para mortales, el mate para leyendas.